Welcome everyone. I'm from HDIN Research. Today we're talking about a massive identity crisis, but the profitable kind. Imagine a heavyweight boxing champion deciding to retire and become a yoga master overnight. That's Philip Morris International, PMI, right now. They aren't just selling sticks anymore, they're selling a high-tech future. Let's dive into how this tobacco giant is trying to save its skin by changing its soul. Numbers first, $40.6 billion in revenue. To put that in perspective, that's enough to buy a fleet of 80 state-of-the-art aircraft carriers. But the real mic drop here? More than 40% of that money now comes from stuff that doesn't even catch fire. They've built a scientific moat so deep, $16 billion invested, that it makes the Great Wall look like a garden fence. They aren't a cigarette company anymore, they're a tech platform with a nicotine addiction. Here's the plot twist. The old-school cigarette business is shrinking by 1.5% a year. It's like being the best DVD rental store in the world in the era of Netflix. So the trillion-dollar question is, how do you keep the shareholders popping champagne while you're literally killing your own main product? The answer is simple. Cannibalize yourself before someone else does. Out with the smoke, in with the tech. Look at this bar chart. It's a bloodbath for the competition. While BAT and JTI are still dipping their toes in the smoke-free pool, PMI has already done a cannonball into the deep end. At 41.5% smoke-free revenue, PMI is basically playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers with a broken board. They've grabbed the, quote, modern nicotine crown and aren't planning on sharing it. Check out this donut. The dark blue part, the smoke-free side, is eating the gray part for breakfast. 2 years ago, it was 36%. Now it's over 41%. If this were a movie, we'd be at the part where the hero successfully transforms into a cyborg. By 2027, the non-smoking side of the house will be the one paying the majority of the bills. Let's look at the map. Europe and the US are the star students here. But look at Japan in the East Asia row, 63.6% smoke-free. In Tokyo, using a traditional cigarette is starting to look as vintage as using a typewriter. Meanwhile, the Americas region is the new gold mine, thanks to a little thing called ZYN. Speaking of ZYN, this is the golden goose. Shipment volumes are up nearly 20%. In the US, these nicotine pouches are basically the iPhone of their category. They bought Swedish Match for $16 billion, which seemed like a lot at the time, but now it looks like they bought Bitcoin at $10. It's not just a product, it's a culture. And then there's IQOS. This is the heavy artillery. 155 billion units shipped. Why does it work? Because it feels like tobacco, smells like tobacco, but doesn't burn like tobacco. It's the impossible burger of the nicotine world. It keeps the ritual alive without the ashtray, and that's why the retention rate is so high. Now, how do they stay so rich while volumes are dropping? 2 words: pricing power. Even though they sold fewer cigarettes, they just raised the prices and made an extra $1.5 billion. It turns out that if people love your brand, they'll pay premium prices even if the world is ending. This inelastic demand is the fuel tank for their $16 billion R&D rocket. Now, how do they stay so rich while volumes are dropping? 2 words: pricing power. Even though they sold fewer cigarettes, they just raised the prices and made an extra $1.5 billion. It turns out that if people love your brand, they'll pay premium prices even if the world is ending. This inelastic demand is the fuel tank for their $16 billion R&D rocket. The legal stuff usually puts people to sleep, but listen to this. PMI has the only FDA-authorized reduced risk status in the game. It's like having the only license to sell water in a desert. They also just settled an 8-year war with BAT. The legal path to the US market is now a 6-lane highway with no speed limit. This formula on the screen, that's the secret sauce. $16 billion in R&D. For context, that's about 3 times the cost of the Large Hadron Collider. They've hired 1,500 scientists. They aren't just tobacco guys anymore. They're life science nerds in lab coats building a scientific fortress that nobody can climb. Since 2008, this company has been on a 20-year mission. They just split the company into international and US units. This isn't just moving chairs. It's preparing for a full-scale invasion of the American market. By 2030, they want the smoke part of Philip Morris to be a trivia question for history buffs. Is it all sunshine and rainbows? No, Russia and Ukraine are a headache. That's 9% of their volume at risk. And then there's the lawyers. ZYN is facing lawsuits in Florida. It's the tobacco tax of doing business. For every billion you make, a lawyer wants a million. Plus, the US dollar is so strong, it's actually eating their profits for lunch. Finally, the bottom line, or as I like to call it, the pockets. They've got $69 billion in assets. They've raised dividends every single year since 2008. If this company were a person, they'd be the one who always pays for dinner and still has a private jet. The cash from the old business is perfectly funding the birth of the new one. To wrap it up, 2025 was the year PMI proved that their smoke-free dream isn't just a PR stunt. It's a working, breathing, money-making machine. They've successfully jumped from a sinking ship onto a luxury yacht, and they're currently the only ones with a working engine.